The Notorious Sports Critic. Downright Sports. Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody! Welcome to a very special Thanksgiving Downright Sports. I am your host, the Notorious Sports Critic. I am your host, the Sports Influencer. I am your host, the one, the only, the crazy enough man to go on live doing a podcast when he doesn't have to, when he could have slept in, because last night he drank maybe a little too much. But I am Brent Reid, and welcome to an all-new Downright Sports here on DJ Chase Radio, here on Dynasty Radio, here on She Real Radio, here on Trap Radar Radio, and here on Fab 94.5 The Hits. A lot of stations, so blessed. And then you can also download the podcast, if you will, at Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and anywhere major podcasts are downloaded. You can also follow, like, subscribe to the show at YouTube/Downright Sports. Join our Facebook fan page, which we are live from right now at Downright Sports, Facebook/Downright Sports. Go to our TikTok channel, our Instagram channel, and everywhere. Just Google Downright Sports, and I promise you, there's not a way you won't find me, the Notorious Sports Critic. We're going to do this Thanksgiving. We're going to watch some football, and we're going to preview football to the best of our ability. So if you're watching on Facebook Live, you're getting it nice. If you're going to listen on anything else, just fact check me. That's what we're going to do. So 3 games today for the NFL. Buffalo and Detroit, which is kind of funny. Buffalo we'll get back to that. The Giants and Dallas, big implications in that game. And then the last game of the night, I always call the throwaway game, whether it's on Christmas Day for the NBA or Thanksgiving. You never kind of want to be the 8 o'clock game, because that's normally when everybody's like, fat, balled over, And a few years ago, that's when everybody was out the house, shopping. But New England and Minnesota. So we're going to preview this Brent Reid style. All right, so let's kick it off backwards, shall we? So Minnesota and New England face each other today. An AFC team and an interleague. Let's just call it interleague. They call it something else, but we're going to call it interleague play. Minnesota lost bad last week. I mean, bad. They played Dallas. They came in. Kirk Cousins had his chains on. He was getting jiggy with it. I think that's what the kids say today. And he got smacked. They put up 3 points against Dallas. And they're going to face New England, who's flying high after playing a very sloppy but very good defense. Of battle, I don't know how well we can say that, because the Jets is trash with the quarterback that they had. Spoiler alert, he got benched. But New England travels to Minnesota. And this is not a critical game for Minnesota from a standing standpoint, because Minnesota is all but clinched their division currently right now, being at 8-2, because Green Bay is done. Yes, I declared Green Bay dead 2 weeks ago, and they are dead. The coroner has come and collected the body and just put them in the freezer. They're 8-2. The next, the Green Bay and the Lions are both 4-6. Yeah, it's Minnesota's division, but where Minnesota has to, the reason why this is a big game, because you don't want to be the team that just won your division, gets to the playoffs, and then you get stomped out because you're not prepared for it. And losing to a Dallas team that kind of came off of a big loss the week prior doesn't make you look good. And Kirk Cousins, who some say is not good, not any good in the prime time, is facing a New England team that is right now in 3rd, tied with the Jets for that 3rd position. Also, a game behind the Bills at 6-4, the Bills at 7-3. They're like, this whole AFC East division is cluttered, and they are all fighting for that playoff spot. And New England's defense is strong enough to kind of counter whatever Kirk Cousins is going to put out there. The question is, can Cousins hook up with Jefferson and they can make magic happen? Does New England have anybody that can cover Jefferson? Is probably the biggest question mark, because if he gets off, if he gets loose, if he gets out there, then forget about it. It's a done deal. They're going to put Devin McCourty on him out there in safety. He's going to have to watch him like a hawk. He's going to have to overexert. He's going to have to basically overplay his hand, which is going to free up other opportunities for other players out there, because when you kind of overlook one thing, another thing, but that's where Kirk Cousins is going to have to come into effect. Miles Bryant is going to have to play out of his mind to keep him contained. But to beat Kirk Cousins, it's pressure. And if New England's front line is able to pressure Kirk Cousins enough for him not to be able to have enough time to make a decision to go to Jefferson, it's a game changer. They can't rely on the run. Their run game is strong, but they can't just solely rely on the run, because New England can stop the run. Now, granted, the run game that they stopped last week on the Jets is a little different because the Jets is missing their top running back. So take that with a grain of salt. But if you're Minnesota and you just got dog walked by Dallas last week on this stage, one of the biggest stages next to the Super Bowl, Minnesota this has to be a statement game. Like, New England's coming into your house, the big Viking ship house. You got to beat them. You got to snuff them out. You can't let this go down like this. And not just, Kirk Cousins in the offense just can't carry it. It's going to take the Minnesota defense to get the job done. Did I write down where they're ranking defense? I didn't. I wrote down a few before I passed out. But fun fact, don't do stats while you drunk. But this Minnesota defense is really going to have to step it up. Now, opponents only score. Here's the crazy part. Opponents score about 23 points a game. Minnesota scores about 22 points a game. And if you're the defense, today is the day you don't want Mark Jones to just get his confidence back in him. If you're Minnesota, to beat New England, you're going to, same rule applies, apply the pressure. This is a game where pressure matters more than anything. But who wins this game? I'm going to say Minnesota, because I think they are better than what people are saying. And so many people have been disrespecting them, putting teams ahead of them despite their record. Minnesota has done everything. They've beaten everyone except for two different teams. I mean, isn't that the name of the game? Just win more than everybody else? Moving on. The next game is the game I'm paying close attention to. We're going to get back to that. Let's save the main event for later. Buffalo and Detroit. Buffalo last week had to play in Detroit, a home game, if you will, because Buffalo basically had Snowmageddon, and they had to relocate locations. But this is a Bills team, as I mentioned, that is tied for first in their division. They cannot, I repeat, not afford to lose this game, because this was a team by everybody that was pretty much placed, not picked, but placed in the Super Bowl. Like, it was no question. Buffalo's in the Super Bowl. Like, put them in, book it. But they've had some stumbles. They suffered a big loss against Minnesota. They suffered big losses against I forgot. Hold on. They suffered only 3 losses, but the 3 losses they suffered have been big. They lost to Miami, a division opponent who right now is in first place. They've lost to the Jets, which, woke the Jets up, and then again Minnesota. But they came back and they beat Cleveland. Now facing Detroit. In Detroit, a Detroit team, mind you, that just beat the Giants last week and didn't beat them in a close game. Like, basically came into the Meadowlands and bust the Giants open 31-18. This is a Detroit team that's deceiving, okay? Because they can put up a lot of offensive numbers, but at the same time, they are trash defensively. They are last, that I have stats for. They are dead last in points allowed, and points allowed. They're second to last in overall points given. They are last in all defensive categories. But here is where the tide changes. They're 6th in overall offense, and they are 8th in points scored. So they could put up points, but they're facing a Bills team that, if the Bills defense shows up, they're not playing outside. You saw how they played they used that field as home field last week. So that locker room is not going to bother them. That field's not going to bother them. The crowd noise is not going to bother them. They're playing at 12 o'clock, so they can get this out the way. They don't have to worry about my family and all this stuff. They're going to have an early game, and this is the game where Josh Allen has to win back the MVP award. Because when the season first started, Josh Allen was MVP, Bills won the Super Bowl. But now the Bills have to be led by Josh Allen, and this is a game where he's got to show out. 12-30, you set the tone for the other two games. You got to throw 4 touchdowns. You got to rush for 100-something yards. You got to ball out. Like, you got to drop dimes everywhere. Like, this is me throwing touchdowns. If you're watching on Facebook right now or you're watching on YouTube, just throwing touchdowns. I have no question the Bills win this game. In fact, I would probably place a bet on these games, and the Bills will probably win this one handily and putting themselves back in the conversation of MVP and reminding everybody, oh, we ain't go nowhere just yet. And, on their onward, upward march to the playoffs, which is around the corner, believe it or not. It's time for the main event. I understand. I spent a lot of years in Virginia, and all Washington fans are like, it's us and the Cowboys, and all Philly fans is like, it's us and the Cowboys. Let me explain something to you people. It's the Giants and the Cowboys. When they play, it's the most watched game in America. Like, no questions asked. We get Giants and the Cowboys today on Thanksgiving. For the Giants, you gotta get your name back. You are 7-3. For the Cowboys, you're 7-3. You won last week real big. You flexing your muscles. Whatever his name is, Dak Prescott's feeling really good right now. But if you're the Giants, you cannot afford to lose this game. Hella high water. This is the game where Saquon, this is the game where Jones, this is the game where Stinson, this is the game where the offense cannot make a mistake. When the Giants played the Cowboys the first time, that game was wall to wall. The Giants played the Cowboys early, and it was a mistake. I think Jones fumbled or something like that cost them the game. But other than that, the Giants, up until the Cowboys had looked, well, they didn't look invincible because, no, that's the Giants schedule. I'm looking at the wrong thing. But up until that point, we were talking about how great the Cowboys were with their backup quarterback, whoever that guy's name was. But now they're at full strength somewhat because I think Ezekiel's kind of a little hurt. The Giants defense has to show up because last week they didn't. You can't let Detroit, but if you let Detroit bust you up the way they did last week, then this is the game you got to get your face back. And it's easy to if you're the Giants, you were playing at home, probably for a lot of the players because they were playing on Thanksgiving, had Thanksgiving Sunday, you know what I'm saying, because you were at home, it probably made it easier. But that's all past. At 4:30, you need to suit up, and your defense needs to come prepared to win. Your defense has to shut down Dak Prescott. But at the same time, your offensive line is going to have to protect Jones. Give him enough time, just enough to make plays, make magic happen, move, because he's not going to pass for 400 yards. He's basically your poor man's Cam Newton. He's basically your dollar store Josh Allen. But long as he doesn't make mistakes, the Giants have a chance. The other factor is going to be if the Giants defense can step it up and contain and hold this Cowboys offense long enough to make moves. You're really gonna have to see guys like Love and Jackson in the backfield, play tight on the receivers. You're gonna have to see Lawrence, and not Lawrence Taylor, but Dexter Lawrence and Jalen Smith. You're going to have to see these linebackers play out their mind, because the Giants right now win this game. With this game, move to second place. With this win, move to second place. And they're now behind the Eagles, and it's all chaotic because Washington emerging. Washington is right there. If the Giants lose this game, Washington leapfrogs them. And then it's all over. And then the hopes and dreams of all little New York boys and girls is done. Because the Jets right now don't know who their quarterback is. So that one fantasy of the Super Bowl being played between the Giants and the Jets has dwindled down to not even a fantasy. It's like a little whisper in the air. Who wins? I gotta pick the Giants. I'm a Giants fan. That's just how it's gonna go. So book it. All right, this has been Downright Sports. You can always listen to the show weekdays from 12 to 1 on DJ Chase Radio. Brand new episodes there on Wednesdays, except for this one. 8 o'clock on Dynasty Radio every Thursday. 6 o'clock on Track Radar Radio on Saturdays. And now I've been moved to 10 a.m. so you wake up with me before you go to church at Sheet Real Radio. Download the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or anywhere major podcasts download it. You can watch the show on YouTube. Downright Sports. Always subscribe at the Facebook fan page. Go to our TikTok channel and Instagram. Also Downright Sports.